Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to episode 328 of the Falcoholic Live. I'm your host, Kevin Knight of Falcoholic Kevin, joined by my co-host, Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way. Adnan, welcome back to the show. How are you doing on schedule release? I guess it's not schedule release eve. It's like actually the schedule is coming out like as we speak. But
Yeah, like literally
yeah,
right
yeah.
now.
How are you doing?
Doing well. Yeah, I got my Berlin mug out here to
Nice.
uh, like blurry to commemorate the Falcons playing in the Germany game this year. The Falcons, I think, are the assigned team to Germany by the whole weird country thing that the NFL did. So my condolences to that country. But yeah, no, it's actually really it's kind of unique because I remember back in the day, like the NFL schedule release before like social media like became what it is now. It's like, all right, you sit in front of a TV and you're going through the like schedule and they're like announcing it. And now it's like, yeah, no, let me just hop on Twitter to see like what the actual schedule is right away.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. The Falcons, I think, put in a ton of effort into this year's schedule video, so I'm going to take the time to enjoy that properly at some point. It looks like it's a Mario Kart parody, so I'm excited to get into that. But we, of course, have some help tonight to break down this schedule, and that is, of course, Joe Patrick. He's at JA Patrick 200. Joe, welcome back to the show. How are you doing tonight?
Great to be back on, guys. It's a fun time. It's an exciting time. We're post-draft, so we get to see, talk about these players that have been added to the team, and we got to, see a little bit of them at rookie mini camp. And so now we get the schedule today, and that's exciting with some primetime games. So it's fun.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And we're going to get into that schedule release, guys. We'll talk a little bit about our season outlook thoughts, of course, way too early season, season prediction type talk. But Joe, I believe you were at rookie mini camp, right? So we'll get your little tidbits, any little nugs you got from watching people in shorts running around, which
Right.
it's the best time of year, really, for that. Is it like already like blasty hot down there, or is it okay still?
It was totally fine, but Jack Nelson mentioned that it was hot, and we're like, buddy, you have not seen anything yet. He's from the balmy shores up there in Wisconsin. So, but I did think of you, Kevin, actually during this because I was actually walking out on the field. I working radio, so I was staying to cut. Basically process the sound from Raheem before I walked out to practice, and so I walk out there, and people are already doing some things, and I just open my phone, I wait for Nick Nash to run a route, and I just like record him running a route, and I just tweet it. I literally say UDFA Nick Nash with the video of him just catching a football. And I didn't even realize, I checked back like a few days later, had like 440 likes, like of him just catching a pass. So that is, that's all the rage. And this time of year and in training camp. So it's fun. It's fun to like feel that buzz again around the team,
Yeah. No, there's definitely been a big uptick in like fan enthusiasm since the draft, which, I totally get it because I'm also more enthused. And to some extent, that probably happens after every draft. But this draft in particular seemed to really sort of change the perception among fans of what we're working with this year and sort of how things are going. So I'm excited to talk with you some more about those Nick Nash catches because I have a Nick Nash agenda now after I tweeted out that he's definitely making the roster before he caught a pass against Air, guys. This was before the hype started for real. But
that's right.
We're gonna get to all that stuff. We're gonna get to, of course, this schedule, talk about our thoughts tonight. Before we do, and before I forget, want to bring you guys a word from our sponsor real quick, guys. We got Bet Online. And folks, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season in full swing. Fingers crossed we get Ronald Acuna back, get Spencer Strider back. I know he was working out, doing a simulated game today. So hopefully that goes well and things continue to improve for the Braves. But if you're depressed about the state of the Braves, didn't they get back to 500?
They did.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah. See. Miracles can happen. It's possible. Also, they were like I don't watch baseball, but I just know that they were not bad enough to actually be like 0-8 or whatever it was. Like that's ridiculous. But NBA wrapping up soon, but several playoff games to go. Same thing with the NHL. We're getting into those tense moments for fans of the NBA, and BetOnline's got more ways than ever to stay on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. So what are you waiting for, folks? Head on over to BetOnline and make sure to use our promo code It is Believe, BLEAV, to get access to the latest promotions. Bet online. The game starts here. All right. So I'm waiting for someone to like publish the schedule in a nice written format for me. That would be nice because this video is great, but this is not easy to parse while I'm trying to talk.
I was going to scramble for a graphic that I could
Yeah.
actually understand. And all these graphics, they always have to wedge the preseason games in there, which I don't care about. I just give me the schedule so I'm not throwing everything off. But
yeah,
the Falcons have tweeted one, I know.
Yes, okay, perfect. Yep. Yeah, so we do have the full schedule now. I do see the tweet. And yeah, I mean, I think it looks like that final leak from the Aussie account was pretty much spot on by the time we got down to that. So yeah, we'll go through this real quick for those of you that don't have access to, you know, a written schedule or anything, or you just want to hear me say the games. That's fine too. So yeah, and if you guys didn't hear, official now, the Falcons have 5 primetime games plus another, like, you know, island game in Berlin where you get they're basically the only thing on TV, so it's like kind of a primetime game. So we got week 1, the Bucks at home, and then we got week 2 at the Vikings on Sunday Night Football. That one was pretty well known. Week 3 is gonna be at the Panthers. Week 4, Washington Commanders at home. Week 5 is the bye week. That sucks. Week 6 is against the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football. That one was also pretty much confirmed earlier. Week 7 at the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday Night Football. So back-to-back primetime games for Atlanta there. Don't remember the last time that happened. We got week 8 versus the Miami Dolphins at home. Week 9 at New England Patriots. Week 10, the Colts in Germany. That was the one that we had officially confirmed ahead of time. Week 11 against the Carolina Panthers at home. Week 12, an afternoon game at New Orleans. Week 13 at the Jets. Week 14, the Seattle Seahawks at home. And then week 15, we got the Buccaneers on Thursday Night Football in Tampa Bay. Week 16 at the Cardinals. Week 17 against the Rams on Monday Night Football at home. And then wrapping up the season against the New Orleans Saints at home. So, yeah, I mean, my immediate takeaway is that week 5 bye sucks. So I can't believe... I mean, based on what we've heard in the past, like, you're allowed to take your bye after an international game, and it seems that the Falcons chose to not do that, which would have given them a week 11 bye, which is pretty much, you know, the perfect bye week.
The best one? Yeah. That's why I'm confused about this.
I'm pretty confused about that, but yeah, Joe, any immediate thoughts on this schedule before we sort of break it down a little bit more?
No, I mean, you kind of touched on it because I'd heard about this. There was the rumors today going around that the bye could be in week 5, but that's what I was thinking was the whole time was that I thought that, you know, the team had the option to take the bye, and surely they would do that because week 11 is, you know, one of the best times to have it. But I don't know. I mean, it's obviously going to be fun with some of these, you know, primetime games, and you do have the bye coming ahead of, you know, one of your more difficult games at home against the Bills on Monday Night Football. So, you know, a little bit more extra preparation, at least for that one. And then you have the 49ers after that. So at least you have a little bit, you know, extra prep ahead of 2 pretty big games that are especially going to be on prime time. But that's about the only thing that's jumping out to me right now. There's no like prolonged stretch that I can see that's against like weak or strong teams. I guess that Dolphins, Patriots, Colts, Panthers kind of in the middle-ish of the season looks like you can get something going there, and then the Saints as well after that. But I am a little bit worried about just, you know, the team leaking results at the end of the season based on that bye.
Yeah, that don't like that. Don't like that. But we'll see. Not anything standing out to you right away?
Yeah, no, I'm looking at how ideal that week 11 bye would have been right before the Saints game too.
Yeah.
And I'm over here like, there's nothing that I've seen that suggests that the NFL isn't doing what they've always done in letting teams have their bye week after the international game. And I just can't really see the logic or the reasoning in not having it after the Colts game. Because it's like you guys said, week 11 is like, you probably can't draw up a better bye week like in the NFL season than that like week 10, 11 type range. So yeah, I'm incredibly confused there. It kind of feels like an unforced error by the team, because if you do pass on taking your bye week, then the NFL will give you another bye week without any input or anything. You get no say in when your bye is. So I feel like the team may have shot themselves in the foot there a little bit. But basically, like, the other thing is this schedule looks very difficult to start. It kind of reminds me of last year's schedule, where it seemed like it was its hardest at the very beginning. I mean, right away, week 1, you play the division champions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and honestly, that game already huge. It kind of feels like it's even bigger if you look at what comes right after. I mean, the Minnesota Vikings, who won 14 games last year. Week 2 on Sunday Night Football, I think you have to go to Minnesota for that game. Panthers week 3, another game where you really need to sort of take advantage of that. Like, I think you really want to be 2-1 coming out of that first 3 weeks. Like, ideally 3,
Yeah.
but like, you really want to be 2-1, because then, Washington, Buffalo, and San Francisco, like, don't let the 49ers record last year trick you. The 49ers are, when healthy, going to go right back to being one of the better teams in the NFC. Washington, Jaden Daniels made the NFC title game last year. Buffalo, Josh Allen. That Buffalo game may be the hardest game on the schedule overall, but that's 3 very sort of, losable games, even with the bye week filtered in there. And yeah, man, I just can't get over how bad the bye week is.
Yeah.
Because, like, what real advantage, or that Buffalo Bills game, I can easily see this team losing the Bills game even coming off the bye week.
Right.
And then, what advantage have you gained from it at that point?
Yeah. Doesn't seem like I mean, it's definitely not that big. I mean, yeah, it would be like, that could be a big statement game. Obviously, it's prime time against, one of the Super Bowl favorites in Buffalo. But like, it's an AFC game. So it's like, it doesn't really matter that much in the grand scheme. It's probably one of the least important games on the schedule from like a pure playoff making standpoint.
It is at home too, though.
It is at home, so that's nice. But yeah, I mean, it seems like the Falcons wanted to pick the Panthers at home, like, after Berlin.
So I was just texting about this to get some clarification on the rules. And so apparently what has happened is that there are so many international games now that they actually, like, the NFL can't really fulfill the request that I think they used to have, which was that teams could basically select it. So now the process is that it's a request from teams if they would like it, but ultimately it's up to the NFL to grant.
Gotcha. Well, that's very important context, and yeah, I mean, it kind of boggled the mind. It's like, I can't really think that. So maybe what they do is they request the bye, and then they probably also have to submit, like, okay, if we can't give you the bye, you get to pick your opponent. Who do you want to play? So they probably, who knows if they actually requested the bye or not. I mean, I think we probably assume that they did, but maybe they thought the Panthers at home would be the next best thing. Personally, I think the Saints probably will be worse than the Panthers this year. But we'll see. Fingers crossed for that. But yeah, we'll have to see. But one thing I did notice is no cold weather games. I mean, maybe you could say the Jets, like on November 30th, but that's not going to be like it's dead of winter. I mean, from someone who lives upstate, at even in like late November, we could have snow, but it's not like Arctic freeze. And like New York City usually is like a month behind upstate typically. Right. So it might be like chilly, but I don't think it's going to be a winter game. And obviously Arizona is not going to be a winter game. So they do avoid any cold weather games, which is nice. Yeah. So that is a nice thing that I just looked at. Yeah, I mean, interesting. The preseason matchups are a little bit different this year. We get the Lions, we get the Titans, and we get the Cowboys in the preseason. Don't see that one too often. We probably, Joe, over under on number of games that starters play in the preseason.
I think it will be 0.
Yeah.
Absolutely, like
0 and
like,
a half. Yeah.
Right, especially after what happened last year with Berlin Trice and everything, and DeMarco Hellum. So yeah, it's kind of funny. For as much as fans want to see him, last year really kind of cemented, I think, the idea of not playing any of those guys. So yeah, that's why we don't need them on the schedule. Just get rid of those useless
Don't worry,
games.
they'll probably only be 2 starting next year. So
I gotta say, I am a little worried about the Panthers. I mean, like I've just been looking at some of Penix's numbers from those 3 games, and I see him in a lot of rankings as like being the second best in the NFL, in whatever metric.
Big time play.
And first in a lot of them is Bryce Young. I think he was the best quarterback, at least in those 3 weeks when I was looking at Penix's stuff. So they're going to be frisky. I mean, I don't know if they're going to be good, but like I feel like they're going to be one of those teams. Like last year, was it the Eagles? They almost beat down the stretch there. They really should have won that game. That would have had the Falcons right back in contention. I believe that had some. Falcons, or maybe it was the Bucks. Actually, it's the game against the Buccaneers late last year. I was thinking of, but I think that they can test pretty much any team.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Like the question is obviously like, can Bryce keep it going? He definitely finished hot, and all Falcons fans know that whatever defense they played in that game, probably not going to see that ever again in the NFL. Whatever that was.
Oh, yeah.
Probably not going to see that again. But, I mean, it doesn't take away from the fact that, like, the Panthers outside of that game were definitely trending upwards. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was saying. It's like, if I had to pick, I would have rather played the Saints at home because I think that team could be a dumpster fire this year.
Yeah, definitely. On that point about the defense, I would just want to say this is diverting from the schedule a little bit, but it's something I've been thinking about lately, which is that it's clear from hearing from Jeff Ulbrich that that he thinks that this defense was like way too schemed up last year, trying to invent plays on defense through the scheme instead of just letting players win. And that's what I loved hearing from him, was like, it's very pragmatic approach. Like, it's not the most academic thing you could hear from a defensive, but maybe the pragmatic thing is actually the thing that gives you more confidence, which is a coach just saying, we need our players to just win their one-on-ones. And that's why we drafted these guys. That's why we draft a guy like James Pierce Jr., because we think that he can win in one-on-one situations that we need him to. So it'll be interesting to see how that difference goes. I think the defensive backs especially are going to like it a lot more. You could definitely sense the discontent that they had last season talking about this game.
Yeah. No, there was discontent, on many fronts. It was pretty clear. So hopefully we'll be able to get back to something that the team likes better, but also that, fans like better because it's good. And like produces wins. That's ultimately what matters at the end of the day. So I'm excited to see that. But yeah, Adnan, anything else you want to add on this? We can start going game by game here and get some really like irresponsible predictions going.
No big thing. The team will have, well, not a big thing. Team will have 8 home games this year, which, I mean, last year they had 9, because until the NFL goes to that inevitable 18th game, it's going to fluctuate between, an odd and even number. But this year they'll only have 8 true road games. That Week 10 game in Germany is technically a road game at Indianapolis, but it'll be a neutral site game. So overall, it looks like it'll be a dead even schedule when it comes to home versus away of 8 home games and 8 true road games.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? I mean, I don't know how big the Falcons' international reach is in Germany, but maybe that's a de facto home game, given, how many of our international fans I'm seeing are very excited about potentially going to that game. We talked about it a little bit last week on the show about the Falcons primetime games. And, I think there was some skepticism about how many primetime games the team would get this year. After last year, they did have 5 last year. And I guess the NFL, bought into the Falcons experience this season, because every one of those games was very exciting last year. And I think the NFL is giving the team a stamp of approval in thinking that they will probably be another young, exciting team that's on the come up in the NFC this season. Because, that's like you said, 6 primetime games if you count that international game, which will be a standalone game, which, let's be honest, this country, everyone in this country is a degenerate for football, it seems like. So everyone will still be up at 9:30 a.m. for
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
And it'll get 15 million viewers one way or another. But yeah, there's going to be some eyes on the Falcons. It's definitely going to be a chance for Michael Penix to really make his mark on the national and international stage, and to really, let's see what he can do under the literal bright lights.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Joe. Yeah.
I was gonna say clearly, like the NFL, I think is likes what they saw from Penix last year. I think especially probably when he had that opportunity in prime time against Washington, and led the team on 2-minute drives to save the game at the end, and it was a very exciting game that had a lot on the line. So I think all these primetime games clearly show that I think the league expects the Falcons to be, I think, good and exciting, but at least exciting.
Yeah.
With that quarterback and some of the weapons they've got around him, of course.
Yeah, it's what a crazy thought. Like, the secret to getting primetime games is to have a quarterback. I don't know why, it didn't seem like that message got through to Arthur Smith at any point while he was here. But yeah, I mean, it's 5. Yeah, it's way more than I thought. I mean, I was hoping for like 2, maybe 3. 5 is and plus, the Berlin game, that's far more than I thought. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Even though, it does force us to broadcast probably until like 1 or 2 in the morning, but
Right,
we do it for you guys. We do it for you guys. I'm willing to. And primetime games are fun, especially when you win. So
the thing that I like about especially the Monday night games being both at home is that it frees up my Sunday. I can watch a lot more football. Usually, I mean, you guys know this, when you're working a Falcons game on a Sunday, you don't really get to see a lot else that's going on. In fact, the 4 o'clock games, if it's a 1 o'clock games, you basically miss most of the 4 o'clock games. So that's nice. Little bonus. Feels like free football we get to watch.
Yeah. Stress-free Sundays, always nice.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, get to enjoy that. Definitely into that one. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll take it game by game here. But Joe, I did before we go into that, because that's probably going to take up most of the oxygen on this program. Anything that you did want to share from minicamp for the people, because I know everyone's ravenous for like you said with the Nick Nash catch.
I know.
Pretty much anything people will be interested in hearing. So
and I say that just I kind of use that anecdote because it's like these are not important things that are happening that ultimately get a lot of attention. But I think that, and I know that if you listen to Locked On Falcons, which I do most days. I know Aaron talked about this yesterday, but it is something that I talked to Dwayne Ledford. Dwayne Ledford was speaking about it to reporters. That was actually, to me, that was like the most interesting aspect of the day, because he didn't speak at that prior media availability day where they had all those coaches speaking. So that's the reason they brought him out. And so he was able to talk about the offensive line, and he talked about the tackles. He was asked about the tackle situation, obviously, with McGarry, and discussed how it's not as big of an issue for Penix, given the offense that this team runs, which is mainly out of the gun and pistol. And I think that is, him saying that is an admission that this team is not going to, drastically change their scheme. And I think that the scheme was not kind of set up with the idea of like protecting a quarterback with a bad Achilles necessarily. Now, I think there was obviously some things play the way that they designed things and the play calls they chose to obviously help Kirk in that situation. But this is the offense that Zach Robinson's going to run. And so basically with the visual field that you have when you're in that position, just set back behind the line, you just have a better kind of spatial awareness of what's happening on that side of the pocket. And so they don't think that will be as big of an issue. And who knows? They could be very wrong about that. It could screw them, and then they kind of rethink it. But what I'm more curious about, guys, is like, what if it actually works out? Like, what if like McGarry doesn't have major issues, and he's at the end of his contract? Do you just let it ride, or do you feel like it feels like ever since they drafted Penix, they were just always going to have to make this change at tackle? And so it'll be interesting to see how it progresses. And the reason I kind of say that is because I just feel like, and I know you guys have said this too, but I feel like McGarry, I think the pass protection stuff can get a little bit overblown. Obviously, there are matchups that he has that he just really struggles with certain players and certain types of speed rushers, basically. But I think on the whole, he's been okay. And maybe if you can better protect him, Zach can kind of figure out better ways to use backs or tight ends or whatever to chip and help. Maybe you can make it a workable option.
Yeah, I agree. I think like McGarry, I think the pass protector, especially the last like 2 years, he's not the best pass protector. We all know that. But when you add his elite run blocking to the mix. He's definitely an above average tackle, and it's hard to replace those guys. So like I can still see the Falcons like deciding to move on next year, and they've kind of left the door open to that by not necessarily extending him yet. But I don't think they're like necessarily itching to do it. I think they just kind of want to see how it works with Penix here, having a left-handed quarterback, all that. Like, how important is it? They want to keep their options open. But I think right now I would still say most likely scenario is they re-sign McGarry at some point before next year. Because this is a typical thing. Like, offensive linemen in their late 20s tend to like continue to improve slowly, like incrementally, maybe like 5% better, and you kind of peak, around 29, 30 or so.
And some of these guys have a lot of longevity late into their 30s.
Yeah, which is why I found all this stuff about people being like, "Oh, Matthews, he's about to retire." It's like, no. Did you know his dad? Yeah, he didn't retire for a while. Yeah.
I think he's also just generally younger than I think a lot of people take him for. I think people take him for being like a 37-year-old.
No,
or
he's
something
like 32.
Like that. He's like 32, I think. Yeah.
He's just played here forever. He's played here since 2014. So
right.
It's funny, but yeah. Well, thanks.
I was gonna say the offensive line stuff was kind of the most interesting to me. But I would say James Pierce, very just impressive physically, and I was kind of of the understanding that I was going to be kind of concerned about his size, basically just being a little too thin. But he didn't strike me as that. Now we'll see what happens. You never know how players actually react once they put pads on or actually running reps. But just in peering, like just standing in front of me, he didn't look like skinny, basically. Not to say he can't or shouldn't or won't put on weight. I think he will. But just kind of checked out. And Jalen, I think everybody else has heard so much about Jalen, how great he is. So it was just good to kind of talk to those guys. Yeah,
it's good to see him in Falcons colors for the first time and get him out there on the field and get a close look at these guys. Looking forward to more of that stuff, more clips, more stuff as we get closer and closer to training camp here. We've got a couple donations we'll do, and then we'll go through the schedule a little bit more, guys. Thanks for joining us. Like, subscribe if you haven't done so already, please. Thank you. But we got Noah C., the super mod with the $5. Thank you, Noah, so much. He says, as long as we don't go 7-8 and lose 5 games straight, I'll be happy. Pretty hyped for that Pats revenge game, too. Yeah, the Pats probably aren't going to be the dumpster fire they were last year anymore, but I do think that that's one that Falcons should have a good chance at that one for sure. We've also got Alex Foster with the $5. Thanks, Alex. Saying, aren't you guys disappointed? We could have had Bill Belichick. How could we have passed up on him? Such a this show was, Alex, and I'm sure you're aware from the very obvious sarcasm, that, this show was extremely anti Bill Belichick in Atlanta. So you're among friends here. So that's whole, like, I didn't expect this with Bill Belichick.
Right.
Like, this was not on my bingo card. I was more like, he's just kind of like, he needs to control everything, and it's going to be like a 1 to 2 year thing just to like reset to what Belichick wants. So at that point, I didn't really want to wait for that. But yeah, and everything else going on around that, I was not predicting that in the slightest. But that's the thing with Belichick. You never really know what's going to go on with him. He's just kind of he's his own man. Yeah.
Think about it to this point. Like if they had hired Bill Belichick, like, I'm not so sure Michael Penix is ultimately the draft pick there, and obviously the quarterback heading into this season. Because I think that, having Zach Robinson there and Raheem, I think had, quite a bit of influence and at least persuading and making the case after they saw this guy. Not, and maybe various amounts of persuasion was needed for various people, but to assuage them to the point where, like, we can actually make this pick and this is actually going to be the positive thing. So that wasn't going to happen with Belichick. Obviously.
Yeah. How many primetime games do you think we'd have without Michael Penix right now? Is the real question.
Right.
So, 2. I think my prediction of 2. Because maybe they would be like, oh, maybe Kirk will be healthy this year. Maybe. Yeah. Good thing we don't have to worry about that. We just have to worry about him being healthy enough to trade to somebody else, hopefully at some point this offseason, or during the season if that's what it takes. But yeah, let's dive into the schedule a little bit. We're not going to go too super deep because, again, this is this is May.
We don't want to
right?
give it away.
Yeah,
We don't want to give it away.
Yeah,
What's going to happen?
This is like our, 3 asterisk season predictions. It's more like what I put in the title. It's a season outlook. We'll sort of give our thoughts on the games a little bit, talk it through. And yeah, we mentioned it right off the top, right? Like Tampa Bay week 1 at home, big matchup. Obviously, the team that's won the division for like the last several years. The Falcons actually kind of gave them the business in one of those games, and then the other one, it was down to the wire, obviously, and a very exciting game. But open the season at home against the biggest division rival. Adnan, I'll let you go first here. But what do you think about this opportunity? Because to me, it seems like an opportunity for the Falcons to sort of show that they're serious about winning this division right off the bat.
I mean, yeah, I like playing Tampa Bay early on. Hold on, let me make sure that my computer doesn't die.
Mid take, he's like, "Yes, okay, yeah. I have a big thing I want to," and then that's it. And then
I actually have the secret to the Falcon season. I have the script in front of me, and I'm gonna.
Yeah, hold on. He's got to pull it up. You got to pull the script up real quick. Yeah.
Screen goes to black.
I got to enter my credentials to get access to the script again.
Yeah, but no, like I don't know. I like playing Tampa Bay right away in week 1 because they're under new offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard. This is going to be his first game really calling the plays and really getting settled into it. And I mean, we saw with Zach Robinson last year as our own personal example, where I feel like Zach Robinson kind of settled in a little bit as the season went along. And, right from the beginning, there were some questions regarding the play calling. You can tell that it took a while for him to get into that rhythm. I do think that we're probably going to see that with Tampa Bay's offensive coordinator too this year, being a first-time play caller. So I do think that that's a very advantageous position for the Falcons against a team that, even though Tampa Bay has been winning this division year in and year out, Falcons have really sort of had their number a little bit since Tom Brady retired. And you beat them both times last year. You should have beaten them both times a couple of years ago if Younghoe Koo doesn't, miss some kicks that you expect him to make. And now, you get them at home. I think this should be a win. I think you definitely need to get off to the right start, especially looking at how, the rest of that September/October is looking. I feel like this is a game that you really need to come out and make a statement in right from the get-go.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this is a big opportunity for Atlanta to maybe catch the Bucs a little bit early, maybe surprise somebody with their defense being, a little bit different than expected. So yeah, I'm excited about it. I think this is going to be one of the tougher games. Obviously, the Tampa Bay games are critical, but yeah, Joe, what do you think about opening the season against arguably, not the biggest rival, but the biggest, competitor for the division?
It is, right. And and I don't know. I guess it depends on how you kind of characterize rival. But to me, that does kind of make it the most important divisional game that you're going to play, or among them. And it's a great point by Adnan about the offensive coordinator kind of settling at that point, and that should really help the Falcons here. But I kind of feel like this is a classic example of a game where a national media will just kind of think that the Bucs are kind of, if not going to win the game, are going to be the much favored team and should win the game or something like that. And I just don't think that there's nearly as much daylight between the Bucs and Falcons as I think the national media. And really, I think a lot of it comes from the betting markets. The betting markets have the Falcons at 7.5 as an over/under, and I think that the Buccaneers are more around 9. So people see that and say, oh, well, there's a considerable gap here between the Bucs, just more established team. And the Falcons have beaten them more often than not over the last 3 years combined, which is and only by one game, I think. But still, it's something. And
hey, we have a winning record. Okay, so
and I do, and on the other side of the coin, on the talking about the offensive coordinators and stuff, I do wonder if the Falcons might have a bit of an advantage early this season with Michael Penix, just with some of the different route combinations they might use because they have a different, style quarterback who can access more areas of the field, and that kind of catching some teams off guard a little bit.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. That we'll see some wrinkles. Like, if you're going to go through all these links not to show anything in the preseason, hopefully they'll at least, show us something in camp. But yeah, if you're going to go through all this to hide stuff, let's see some razzle dazzle week 1 and not what we saw last year week 1, which was like the weirdest version of this offense of the entire year, which was like, I still to this day can't really figure that one out. And then the immediate, this isn't to protect Kirk Cousins. We just wanted to run this offense.
It was such a bad start, like from especially like a media perspective. Like they were behind the 8 ball from the get-go as far as like believing in the scheme and like, what is this offense basically? And they started to like kind of get things, around, but it never, I don't know. It always seemed like it maybe wasn't going to be the most sustainable thing.
Yeah, it was a little weird. Yes, but we're moving past it. That was last year. This year, we're coming out of the gate hot. We're on fire. All right, so the big dub week 1, obviously, and then week 2 at the Vikings on Sunday Night Football. So this is, I think, the same as last year. Actually, I think they had a Sunday Night Football game week 2. That obviously worked out well for the NFL and for Atlanta, where they were. And this is probably gonna be the same thing. Probably gonna be big road underdogs. Against, a major NFC playoff team in the Vikings. Last year it was the Eagles. Kind of crazy that the Falcons were one of the only teams to like beat the Eagles last year of all the teams they failed to beat. But Sunday Night Football at the Vikings. Vikings probably this is going to be the second game of JJ McCarthy. So yeah, Joe, what do you think about this one?
To me, this one feels like it's going to be a sloppy game, not clean, because, like you said, their Vikings could very likely have essentially a rookie quarterback playing his second game. And listen, McConnell's a great coach, but I think any young quarterback's just going to have issues. But it's also for the Falcons, it's in one of the more hostile environments you're going to see in the NFL, especially with regards to being able to hear. Is the communication going to be on point with on the Falcons side, a quarterback playing making his 5th start in the NFL, and kind of being as much in command as they'll need him to be. Now, I think that Penix is that's one of his underrated skill sets, is kind of being in command, but still, that's a tough test. And I don't expect this one to be not an exciting one to watch, but just not a clean football game. I think they're going to need to rely on maybe some defensive turnovers or something.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And we know the Vikings defense is going to be tough, but I think Penix should be better equipped to handle it than Kirk Cousins was. That did not go well. Did not go well at all. Adnan, what do you think about week 2?
This is you get the good and the bad with playing the Vikings this early, and I do think that the good will sort of outweigh the bad a little bit. The bad being that Brian Flores is obviously an excellent defensive coordinator, and it's kind of rough for Michael Penix in what will be his second ever road game in the NFL in the regular season.
Yeah, that's a good point.
To go to Minnesota in that environment, it won't be his first road primetime game. It won't be his first road night game, because we saw that on Sunday Night Football against the Washington Commanders. But Flores is a guy who really, really likes to dial up the blitz. It's gonna definitely be a test for Michael Penix, and you would rather he have a few more games under his belt to sort of get into that rhythm and to sort of build that confidence before that game. But on the other end, the Vikings quarterback JJ McCarthy, he's coming off that torn ACL. Who knows how he's going to look to open up the season? Who knows how he's going to look in his second ever potentially second ever start in the NFL? Yeah, I'm with Joe. I think this will be a bit of a sloppier game overall, but definitely one where the Falcons will have a chance to come out of Minnesota victorious in what would be, a huge confidence boosting win, and what'll be a win that would sort of, I don't want to say send shockwaves around the NFL, because I don't think it would be that shocking, but it would definitely send a message to the NFC, given how good the Minnesota Vikings were last year in the regular season. Even though I called them frauds throughout the entire season, but I was vindicated when the playoffs came around. But yeah, I if the Falcons can come away 1-1 out of these first two games, I'll definitely be very satisfied, and I think the fan base should be satisfied. If they come away 2-0, then we're rolling, then we're having some conversations. But I definitely, it goes without saying, I definitely want to win one of these first two games between Tampa week 1, Minnesota week 2. I just think Tampa week 1 will be, the easier game to win, given that it's at home.
Yeah, the home away split helps, but we do know, like, Penix has shown that, at least what we've seen so far, like playing on the road, like in a big spot, at this point doesn't seem to have phased him. So yeah, like to see that. We also got week 3 at the Panthers, and then week 4 at with the Commanders at home. So maybe a little bit of a reprieve against the Panthers. By week 3, we should know if that team is, kind of what they were last year, or if they are taking the next step, in their first two games, which are, let's see, the Panthers have a cupcake start to the season. They played the Jaguars and the Cardinals to open. So they'll come. There's a very good chance that the Panthers could come into Atlanta 2-0, and set up a spicy matchup.
So annoying. Like if they start off 2-0, beating those two terrible ass teams.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Hopefully, Kyler Murray has a plan in that second game.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's a Call of Duty that's going to come out, for a while. So I think he'll probably still be on point in that game. But yeah, Carolina week 3. I mean, any division game is important, but yeah, I mean, Adnan, what do you think about that game in particular? You think that's another road game, back-to-back road games for Atlanta here to
Yeah. Yep, it's another road game. If you want to be serious this year, if you really want to achieve your goals of winning the division and of possibly putting yourself in the best situation, in the best possible spot to make that playoff run that we have been thirsting for since 2017, I really think you need to beat the Panthers both times this year. I get it. It's a division game. It's a road division game. Those are never givens. Those are never a given. But you really, the Panthers and the Saints, I think you really need to beat up on this season. Like, especially given what comes right after the Panthers. If you're at 1-1, that Panthers game feels like it could be sort of a crossroads game. Before you have, your toughest, in my opinion, your toughest 3-game stretch of the season, where if you lose that Panthers game, then, the wheels can start falling off terribly quickly. Whereas, if you win that game, you have that buffer to where, even if you lose that Washington game, it's fine. Even if you lose that Washington and then Buffalo game, it's not the worst thing. It's not a catastrophe. Whereas, you go into those games 1 and 2 and you lose those games, I promise you it's going to be full-on panic mode in the city if this team is 1-4, especially without your first-round pick next year.
Yeah, it'll be a big deal to get to 2 wins. Like, you can afford to drop some of these, like especially the Buffalo game. You can afford to drop that if you need to. But yeah, if you've got 1 win, going into that Buffalo game, you're in big trouble. You're in big trouble at that point. So hopefully you don't have to have that going on.
I think just to speak really briefly about Carolina, just in general, and the Saints, like this Falcons team, if they want to make the playoffs, they want to kind of fulfill these expectations, they need to win these games where they are the better team and like should be winning these games. Like I think that's what's really hung them up kept them from making the playoffs the last couple of years, is they've just lost games that they had no business losing. Like that 2023 season when they lost to the Titans and the Vikings with Josh Dobbs in the middle of the year, those are the kinds of stretches this team just can't afford to have. They're not that good. So they need to win these games where they are the better team and can assert themselves.
Yeah, I definitely see that. Like, that's basically the story of last year, why they missed it. They couldn't make a kick to beat the Saints. They missed, I think, 3-4 kicks in that game. And they ended up losing by 2, I think. So, it's like, yep. And, you can't really afford that, right? And you blow the game against the Panthers late at the end of the season. Now, I think if they had won that Saints game, probably would have gone into that final Panthers game with a little bit of a different mindset. You know, I think maybe this is just rose-colored glasses talking, but I think the team might have considered that last game more of like an evaluation game than we need to win this to make the playoffs game, you know, for the like tiny sliver of hope that the Saints were going to upset the Bucks, which did not happen. But, you know,
but it was like, it was also, I felt like that Steelers game, I mean, the Steelers were a good team, but it felt like that was a very winnable game against the Steelers offense at that point. That was just kind of patchworking it together with Justin Fields. Like, these are the kinds of games that to me really kind of epitomize the failures that this Falcons team has had these last few years.
Yeah. And, you know, and moving on to, you know, Washington, like, this is another big test. Like, this is the team that you took to the brink last year. This is, you know, they're kind of the darlings of the NFC right now, like the up and comer. So an opportunity perhaps to get some revenge. What do you think? I mean, this could be one of the games of the week, even though it's not a primetime game. I think that we could have like the Falcons have outperformed expectations and are like 2-1 going into this game. You know, this could definitely be a really spicy one.
This is the kind of game where I really wish, and maybe it'll happen, but it doesn't sound like it will, that you could have Jalen Walker just kind of being a spy-ish type of player to track down Jaden Daniels. And I think that it would kind of be a test case, because I think that like Washington is kind of the prototypical like modern build, I feel like, with Jaden Daniels obviously being the quarterback, of having that dual threat that can, you know, pick you apart in the passing game when you leave guys open. And just kind of being able to track them down all across the field. So, but I thought the Falcons played them well. Like, the Falcons missed opportunities in that game. They really, you know, they could have and maybe should have won that game. I feel like they have every opportunity to get revenge in this one.
Yeah, no, I think that was the infamous D'Angelo Malone penalty that cost him the game.
Oh my gosh, I forgot.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Which, like, it's so crazy going from that game where like the Falcons defense, the Falcons defense was not good last year. They came to play against Washington. It still wasn't good, but they made enough plays outside of that D'Angelo Malone play to win. And then you see like the next game and the defense looked nothing like this game. And that's why I was like, really think that last game was like, all right, Jimmy, well, we're having a tough time here. We need to like show us what you got, or we're going to have to part ways. And he's like, all right, let me cook. You haven't let me cook all year. You got to let me cook. He cooked something up, but yeah, it was not what I wanted. I don't think it's what anyone wanted, unfortunately. It's like the fruitcake on Christmas morning or whatever. Sorry if anyone is a big fruitcake enjoyer, but yeah, Adnan, what do you think about Washington?
Yeah, this is definitely going to be arguably the toughest home game of the season. I mean, you know, Jaden Daniels looked like an absolute world beater all of last year. They went into Detroit and they put up, you know, a 40-piece on that Lions defense that was very, very scary last year. And, you know, it just felt like Washington toward the end of the year just got better and better. And now, you know, it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough one, but like you guys said, the Falcons played them very well. The Falcons should have won. Leading up to that D'Angelo Malone penalty, the defense was having their way. And, you know, without that penalty, Washington was about to be punting out of their own end zone on like a 4th and 26. The Falcons were about to get the ball at midfield. Like, that play completely changed the entire course of that game and possibly alter the entire course of the Falcons season. Who knows? But, you know, that's neither here nor there.
They missed some opportunities. Remember the end of the first half? They didn't really kind of push for a touchdown there, where they were in position. Obviously, some clock management at the end of the second half that was terrible as well.
Clock management.
And, you know, the Falcons had decided to sign the one free agent kicker who couldn't kick further than like 52 yards out of, you know, the handful that were available. But, you know, that was last year.
There's a simulation that splits off at that point where that ball apexes that has the, you know, just takes the teams in a totally different direction from that point forward.
That camera angle was so cruel too,
because
it's like, oh, this is end. It's
end over end. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
My God.
There is like an alternate universe where the Falcons like steal, like they basically like steal the Commanders' mojo with that win.
Exactly.
Like, they win in overtime instead. Then they go on the incredible run to the championship game. game and end up losing. And then, everything is Michael Penix is, the hot name, and Jaden Daniels obviously still would be even with that loss. But, there's some timeline where the Falcons like switch places with the Commanders after that game. And unfortunately, it's not funny. This one. Yeah.
It's a field goal difference. I do think it does legitimately change the way that people talk about this Falcons team and think about Michael Penix. I think that had the Falcons won that game, people would like the national conversation about Penix would be like, holy shit, this kid has it. Like to go in his second start and to do all that, that presumably would have led them, to the playoffs potentially had they, gone on and won the next game.
I definitely think they would have beaten the Panthers.
Yeah,
right.
I think they would have kicked the shit out of the Panthers if they won. If they were coming off the high of that Washington game. And
the only reason I point this out is that that's still the case. Like all those things are still the case. It's just that field goal didn't go in. That's what that's the great thing about sports. It's just like these things happen on the margins. But the teams are still, I think, very evenly matched.
Yeah. I do think that. We are going in a year 2 of Jaden Daniels, so he's not a rookie anymore. You would presume that he's going to get, even better. He's going to take another step into, there's this power vacuum among NFC quarterbacks right now where there's just not many good ones. Like all the really elite quarterbacks are all in the AFC, and then I guess depending on what you think of Jalen Hurts, like he's very good. But then beyond that, it's like who else in the NFC is really in that upper echelon of quarterbacks, and I do think that Jaden Daniels is probably going to take that step this year, which is what makes me a little bit weary of that Washington game. They went into the offseason with a lot of cap space. It's year 2 under Dan Quinn, so the message is still a couple of years from like getting stale in that locker room the way it got stale in Atlanta. But yeah, I don't think there's going to be any shame in dropping this one for the Falcons, even though obviously it would be much better if they won this home game.
Yeah, that would be nice. But yeah, we got the bye in week 5, which sucks, unfortunately, but, it doesn't seem like there's probably much they could have done about that. Then we get to the Bills in week 6, Monday night football game. And that one's a spicy one too, where we'll get to see this could obviously I think by the time we get to the bye, we'll have sort of an idea of what we're looking at this year. If they, I think the probably the midpoint of this is that, Falcons are 2-2 going into the bye. And then, this Buffalo Bills game could be sort of where they, make a statement or kind of start to slump a little bit. But it's like, if you're 2-2 going into the bye, you go up against the Bills on Monday Night Football, like you can go to 2-3 and lose to the Bills. Like no one's probably gonna really fault you for that, because the Bills, are once again going to be one of the favorites in the AFC. But if they were to win against the Bills in prime time, then, everything changes. So yeah, am I crazy, Joe? Like, do we get this, big Monday Night Football dub here? So
it's possible. This team should have again. There's a lot of should haves, could haves from last year, but the Chiefs, that Chiefs game, nobody thought they had a realistic chance really in that game. Honestly, that was kind of the impression I had, and they were a potential flag on Kyle Pitts away from scoring at the end of that game to win that one. So I expected to just be a closely contested game. Again, people I think look at matchups and just think it's not going to be competitive because this team is more likely to win, which I would probably, I'm sure that the Bills will be favored in that game, but to your point, I think, the Falcons kind of put themselves on the national map if they win that.
Yeah. The Falcons have kind of played the Bills decently the last few times, and especially in the first half last time. But the fact that it's in Atlanta and not in Buffalo late in the year, which I think last time they played it was late in the year. I remember it being snowy, so it's that should help Atlanta, have a little bit of a shot there. But the Bills are just going to be a tough out for any team this year. Adnan, anything you want to add on that Bills matchup?
Yeah, no, you remember when I said that beating the Vikings week 2 wouldn't really send shockwaves? Beating the Bills would send a lot of shockwaves on Monday Night Football, or across the NFC and the NFL. I feel like the Falcons will have a chance given that they're coming off the bye week. And this is also a Monday night game, so it'll be 15 full days in between games. But yeah, I don't really see this one as being the one where you're like, all right, I'm chalking up a dub here, because the Bills, I think this is, in my opinion, the hardest game on the schedule, like on the entire schedule. Josh Allen is, the MVP of the league last year. There's some debate, him or Lamar, but I think that those two were far and away the two best players in the league last season. Allen's just getting better and better. The Bills are a very scary team. I feel like this may be the year where they finally break through. I know we've been saying that for years, but Pat Mahomes has just had their number for years. If the Chiefs start regressing, then I think the Bills are going to be the team that's right there to, make it through in the AFC. But the other thing, even though this is a home game, I feel like there's going to be a lot of Bills fans in the building. We know the Bills fans
100%.
really like to travel. The Bills Mafia is arguably the best fan base in the NFL. It's a Monday night football game. The Bills don't really play in Atlanta very often. Atlanta's, still a very nice touristy city. I feel like we're going to have a lot of people who fly down from Buffalo with their, with their tables in the Gulch tailgating before the game. And I do think that will sort of, the Falcons are obviously going to have the home field advantage, but it's going to be a bit more neutral than, some other home games that we're going to experience this season.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. And shout out to the Bills fans. It's one thing I loved about being up here in New York. You get to see some of the Bills Mafia, who are every bit as, it's not an act. These people are obsessed. So got to shout out the Bills fans for sure. They've I've been getting lobbied hard to become an honorary Bills fan. So, eventually if I live up here long enough, that'll probably happen. Obviously the Falcons will be my number one, but you're allowed to have an AFC team sometimes, in those but it's like, I'm just taking on like the second most, or I would say the Bills maybe have a case to be like the more tortured even than Atlanta. So that would probably, be my curse, just taking on another curse franchise. But, well, we got through 6 games. I think that opening of the season is pretty critical. And we're going to go through the whole season at some point, give you guys our season predictions. But wanted to get you guys, a look at some of these early critical games and the bye week with our guests here. I know Joe has to take off to cover Atlanta United, which thankfully was postponed long enough for us to have tonight's show. So we'll go ahead and wrap things up tonight.
What's the weather in Austin right now, Joe? Is it like 105 or something like that?
Apparently it was like 103 today. Yeah, I think it's 97 was last I saw, as of like 45 minutes ago or so.
Yeah.
Goodness.
An hour ago.
Yeah. Great stuff. So thankfully it doesn't look like you actually have to. Seems like you don't physically have to be in Austin.
That's right.
So
that's right.
That's a good thing.
I'm glad I don't travel.
Yeah. But Joe, thank you so much for coming on. We're obviously gonna have Joe back, guys. I know you guys have more draft questions and stuff about the whole outlook, and we will of course get to that in the slow season. But I thought about doing another draft show, but given that tonight's show is literally during the schedule release, kind of had to talk schedule release. But we'll definitely, but we'll let to spread the draft and roster analysis out a little bit, because we got to get through all of June and the first third, 2/3 of July with nothing. So we'll save Joe's draft takes for a dead zone show here. Joe, thank you so much for coming on. He's at JA Patrick 200. Anything else you want to plug, let the people know about before we sign off?
If you are an Atlanta United fan, 5starfile.com. You can catch me there for Atlanta United stuff.
Absolutely. Go check it out. And Joe, appreciate you. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Mm-hmm.
All right. Adnan, he's at Say Which Way. Also, are you a United fan as well? Like, I'm pretty sure you.
I'm for all the Atlanta teams.
Yeah.
Big, I always want the city to do well.
Yeah, me too. I don't know too much about the other sports, but I do enjoy them. I do like to pop the Hawks on from time to time. I'm not allowed to watch the Braves anymore, because the first time I tried to watch the Braves, I saw 2 at bats, and then I think Acuna tore his ACL. I was like, okay, well, I'm not allowed to watch this team anymore. So you can blame me for that, guys. I'm sorry. That was several years ago. This wasn't the most recent time or anything. I'm not involved with that. But shout out to the Braves. Congratulations on getting back to 500. And yeah, we'll be back with all kinds of more Falcons content coming your way. We'll do probably our season predictions here soon too. And we'll keep you posted on that, as well as any tidbits that do make it out of rookie minicamp and OTAs and stuff that are interesting. We'll pass along. You can obviously follow along on the falcoholic.com for the terrific written content that we got going there 7 days a week. But yeah, guys, I'm Kevin Knight of Falcoholic. Kevin, please like, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Really appreciate that. It helps us out in a big way. And yeah, we will see you guys. I will have some kind of show on Friday. I haven't decided yet, but stay tuned, and then we'll have more coming your way next week as we slowly start to transition into the dead zone, but it's okay. We'll get through it together, as we always do. So until next time, guys, thank you so much for joining us here on the Falcoholic Live. We'll see you. Have a great night.